All right, so they're still in the array. How can we fix that? Who made this part work? Who made removing from the array work? I thought there was a hand over there. All right, Ashley, how'd you do it?
I used the index of to find where in the array that specific content was, and then spliced it at that spot.
Okay. So how'd you do that? Let's see. So in remove flick, let me say remove from the UI. Remove from the array. So how'd you find it?
I did let I equals this dot flicks dot index of flick, and then
How'd you get the flick in there?
I had it inside of my
Handle submit. That's what I thought you were gonna say. Did anybody do it this way, but not that way?
I mean, I did it the same way, but I had it in a separate function because I just passed fix or flick as another argument.
So just pass flick as another argument. So render item already has flick, right? Now I'm already passing in the item, so I could pass in the flick too, right? Why not? This is getting a little long. If you want to, so I've previously broken things onto multiple lines for the sake of readability, or so I don't have to scroll horizontally. By the way, you can totally put a line break before the dot. That's no problem. You're allowed to do that. So if I do that, I get a slightly shorter line here. Then I could even put my my arguments on separate lines. In which case, I probably want to put my parentheses like this. So just makes it a little easier to read because it's not going so far to the right. So I'm passing two arguments into remove flick now, item and flick. Maybe flick feels better as the first argument, since that's the thing we're removing. So then we could do, she said index of. So our array is this dot flicks dot index of flick. And then splice. So this dot flicks splice. First argument is the index to start at, right? Next argument is the number of items to delete. We'll just delete one. And the additional arguments would be items to add at that point in the array, which we're not doing. So that ought to do it. Let's check it out. Jurassic World with our boy Pratt. App.flicks. There we go. Thor with Hemsworth. Cool, cool. Jack Ryan Shadow something with Pine. Cool, cool. Let's delete the middle one. Deleted. Sure enough, it's gone. Let's add another one. Gifted with Evans. Then let's delete Jack Ryan Shadow something. See if it deleted the right one. Yep. Jurassic World and Gifted. Cool. So who did this part a totally different way? I know at least a few people did. Okay. I forget. Did yours have the problem with deleting after you've okay? That part worked. Yours worked like that. How about you? What did yours? Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden. Right.
So it's kind of like that. I passed in my flick, and then I did the dot filter on my list.
Ooh, filter. Fancy. Very fancy. Cool. So one more little note here. This totally works. Remove the flick from the array. Or remove flicks from the array. So the issue that I demonstrated, where sometimes if you've already deleted one and then you add another one and then you delete again, it removes the wrong one. If you're trying to like keep track of an ID for each one, then you can run into problems because suddenly you start getting duplicate IDs if you're just like basing it on the length plus one or something. So you'd have to take some extra steps to make sure you're not doing that if you're going to do it that way. I'm not totally thrilled with passing the item in as an argument here. That is nice and easy, but we could get that from the event target, even without using parent node. So let's, just for the sake of demonstration, show another way to do that. So passing in the flick, I'm happy with that. But I say we could get the item from the target. So we said the event target is the button, right? And at the moment, the button's parent is the list item. But what if I did put another div in between them or something like that? Then what? So there's another method called closest, which returns the closest ancestor of the current element or the current element itself, which matches the selectors given in the parameter. In other words, you can pass closest a selector just like query selector. So I could say dot flick, because I think our list item has a class on it, a flick, right? Or you could even say li if you were confident we were going to be an li. Just in case we change that, I don't think we're going to change the fact that it has a flick class on it. Let's look at this, just make sure I'm right about this. Yeah, right? So the li has a class of flick. So you can pass that selector in here, and what it will do is it will first test the element itself. Does this element, the button, match that class? No? Okay, keep going. Look at its parent element. Does it have a class of flick? In this case, yes. Okay, I'm done looking, return it. So it'll find the closest thing up the tree that matches the selector you pass it. So if it's the parent, great. If it's the grandparent, that's fine too. See the difference? So I could say const item equals that. Grab the list item. So closest. Kind of handy for that. I like it. See if it has any notes about the browser compatibility. Internet Explorer does not support it. Edge does. Firefox, Chrome, everything else. But notice there's a whole thing in here about what to do for browsers that do not support it. So a polyfill is, anybody ever heard the word polyfill before? So it's something you can use to add support in older browsers for a feature you're trying to use. Usually you'll find a pre-written polyfill and just like add a script that adds that in there. So basically it's an often rather complicated mess of JavaScript that just allows you to use newer functions that don't actually exist in the older browsers, and it will basically add support for those. So you can use those sometimes. So for right now, we're just not gonna worry about. We're not gonna worry about the browser support for this one. I wanted to show you that this exists. It's kind of cool. Closest. If we were worried about that, passing in the item would be totally legit. Note, this doesn't work in Internet Explorer. Or requires a polyfill, we could say. Requires a polyfill. Internet Explorer. Use element.closest to grab the li. Questions? Just a different way to do it.